Hello again. So it's been a while since I'd made anything while using this GoPro. So I was gonna make two things. Well, okay, one thing, but two portions of it. Oh man, ow! That was almost fucked up my toe. I shouldn't have done that, but but yeah, two portions of one thing, that being a frittata, which if you've ever had a quiche, a frittata is essentially just a quiche without crust. So it's just the filling, essentially. And it's pretty good, honestly. But yeah, I'm going to make two of those, and I'm going to use two of these ceramic deep dish pie, what would you call it? Pie tins is not really a tin, it's it's ceramic, but yeah. As you might be able to see, it is a fair, but like almost double the depth of a standard pie tin or whatever. And it's funny, even with that, it doesn't feel like it could fit that much in it. But it's probably got around the volume of, say, like an 8-inch pie tin or something, or cake pan or something around there. Which, at least going by the recipe and how much I've been able to fit in there compared to the recipe that I use, which I think is going, assuming you're using a 9x9 square pan to make it. So it's about the same volume of a 9x9, which I think is about an 8-inch cake pan. But yeah, so if you only have standard pie tins, if you were gonna do this, I would say one portion of the recipe probably put in two pie tins at least, because it will not fit with a standard pie tin. Now, if you have one of these sort of deeper dish ones, it should fit, but I don't know if there's any like standards of how deep a deep dish is or whatever the fuck. So yeah, if you're using a standard pie tin, this recipe that I'm using, I would say basically split it between the two for one, but I'm gonna be doing two, so technically you would do four, but I don't think most people would do that. And obviously you'd have to change the cooking times and everything. But besides that, I'm making two of these frittatas with this one recipe. Each one is going to have 8 eggs, so it's going to use 16 eggs in total. I'm going to do this in two separate mixing bowls here, because it makes it a lot easier to portion them out. So, like, if you add the cheese and I did this before, if you add the cheese and the ham and all that stuff that you're adding into, like, one, and then try to portion them out, the amount of the solids, or whatever you want to say, like, the chunkier stuff, will not really distribute evenly at all, I would say. So, I mean, you could always do that after the fact, but I don't think that works nearly as well as just doing it in two separate mixing containers if possible. But yeah, besides all that, I don't know if I don't know if I'm gonna have much to say in terms of, like, you know, talking conversation stuff. I didn't really have anything planned. I just kind of wanted to make this stuff, and figured I'd record it while I have the opportunity. So it's a pretty simple recipe, all things considered. Now, you can add stuff like diced onions, garlic, peppers, spinach, corn, whatever the fuck you want to add. If you want to add extra add-ins, you could do that. This is a very simple and pretty flexible recipe. In my case, since I'm trying to avoid certain things, or adding certain things like onions and garlic with my current diet or whatever, It's mostly just going to be, it's basically just going to be eggs, lactose-free milk, ham, or diced pre-cooked ham or whatever, and cheese, shredded cheese, and spices. That's basically all it's going to be. But you could really add as much as other stuff as you want, as long as it'll fit within the volume of whatever thing you're cooking it in, obviously. But yeah, it's a very flexible recipe. I think it's very tasty, and I think it's a good use of eggs if you have a bunch of them. But yeah, I guess let's get started. So usually what I do is I do the eggs first, and then I mix those all together, or whatever you want to call that. Like scramble them together, whatever the mixture, and then I put in the milk. You can use whatever milk you want to use. In my case, I'm using lactose-free, whole lactose-free milk. And then after that, I'll have to check the recipe. I'm pretty sure I usually do shred the cheese directly into it. And then I dice the ham, and then I do the spices last, mix it all together, put it in the pie tins, or the pie containers, pans, whatever. Yeah, pie pans, whatever. And then I bake them, and then I leave them in those pans, and then whenever you serve them or serve it, you just cut it straight from the pan, because those are ceramic pans, so there's no non-stick bullshit to be concerned about or whatever. But yeah, let's get started by cracking some eggs. I've gotten, obviously with doing it a lot more, I've gotten much better at cracking eggs, even though I'm still not the best at it. Optimally, you want these to be, if possible, room temperature, because, at least when you actually mix it together and do the cooking, it makes it more consistent, I guess you could say, the how long you want to cook it, and how the ingredients incorporate and stuff. But that more matters, I think, for like baking stuff, where the stuff is actually turning into a one cohesive mixture, solution, or whatever. So in this case, yeah, it doesn't really matter. One thing that's nice about, at least that I've heard and I've sort of found, is that eggs that are straight from the fridge or whatever, they tend to crack a bit nicer, a little bit more consistently, I guess. It's not like that big of a difference, but they're usually a tiny bit easier to work with there. But yeah, if you're doing eggs that are going into something like baking a cake or some shit, or cookies or whatever, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's not necessary, but some people advise having them at room temperature instead of cold from the fridge or whatever, which I understand because I've done it before, and stuff does mix better, incorporate better, and more easily when it is all the same temperature, and probably not just the same temperature, but specifically room temperature or whatever. Like colder probably just doesn't mix as well as warm. But I think a lot of people don't even bother, which I can understand. I don't think it matters that much, because in theory, the whole process of mixing will warm the shit up anyway, so it's like, yeah, but depends. I'll agree with some of the people that have said that it's better to have them at the same room temperature. But for this, just kind of rambling, it doesn't really matter. This recipe specific, or this kind of recipe, it doesn't really matter. And yeah, doing all these eggs, making a mostly egg-based dish. Obviously perpetuating the chicken fractal, but I'm good with that. I quite like the chicken fractal. Chickens are cool. Chickens are magical. I think it's one of the better fractals in that sense. Instead of some of this stupid shit that we've had, like frogs and Ninja Turtles and stuff. Not that I have a problem with Ninja Turtles, but just the kind of goofiness of it. Man, it's always crazy to see how many shells are left after cracking 16 eggs. Up some of that yolk. And then I'll break all the yolks and mix them together. It's always funny with these recipes, like, I know I'm a very slow and methodical kind of person when it comes to most things, but I know, time since the COVID reality shift, I know that time has accelerated quite a lot, at least for, people on the same frequency as me. Maybe not for the maybe not so much for the other normal, quote unquote, normal people in society or whatever, but for me and for many others, yeah, it is accelerated to an insane degree, a pretty insane degree, to where what it was. Did I get egg on myself? I feel wetness, maybe a little bit. Not a big deal. What the hell is that? Oh. But yeah, like, I don't know, any of these recipes that they fucking say, like, how long it takes, estimate, oh yeah, it takes like 20 minutes prep, or whatever, it takes like 20 minutes to get all the ingredients together. I'm like, man, in what fucking world are you getting some of this shit done in like 20 minutes? I don't know. Like I said, it's probably more just, okay, no, I don't think that's the case necessarily, but it's probably a lot, the logic, what would you call it, the rational explanation would be, well, you're just slow, and you don't consider how long it takes you to do things, or whatever the fuck. And that's probably somewhat a part of it, but yeah, I don't know. It's almost like no matter what, even stuff that should take like supposedly 20 minutes takes like double, triple, sometimes even 4 times the amount of time that it supposedly should for me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really seem and it doesn't really seem like it makes sense. And it doesn't really seem right, so yeah. But it's not a big deal. It's just one of those things, like, hey, when I'm baking like 2 or 3 things all in one day, it takes like fucking 6-7 hours by the end for everything to get done, like cleaned up and everything. It's like, yeah, these stupid estimated times, get the fuck out of here. Alright, I think that's definitely mixed up well enough. I'll do the other one. There we go. Yeah, I like to just preemptively break the yolk membrane first before I start mixing, just because, I don't know, makes it less likely that, I don't know, I mean, it would be very unlikely for one of these yolks to not break just from all this mixing, but I don't know, it makes it a little bit more potentially consistent, I guess. But when I actually pour this stuff into the pie tins, I'm not going to record the cooking process or whatever, you know, the entire cooking thing, because it's about an hour. I'll just show the before and then after, and then pretty much be like, all right, that's it. Because I don't think just waiting for it to cook for an hour is really that interesting. If I have anything to talk about. Oh yeah, I need a cup of milk, and that is approximately like 200 supposedly like 245 grams. 245 grams. So that's approximately how much I'm adding. I look for more like 240. It doesn't fucking... If you're off by a little bit, it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah, perfect. I don't know how much of this lactose-free I have left. Yeah, I probably got about maybe another 2 cups. This thing, I mean, just for this kind of recipe, this thing lasts quite a while, and it's less than that particular lactose-free container is less than a gallon. It's like 3/4 of a gallon or something. I think that's usually the biggest that they come in, from what I've seen. 96 ounces instead of 1 gallon, which is 128 ounces, I believe. Yeah, like I said, you could pretty much add anything into one of these kind of recipes, these frittata recipes. It's basically as flexible as like any kind of casserole or some shit. I would say casserole recipe. But yeah, the only limiting factor is just how much volume or space or whatever you have to spare within the container you're cooking it in. And you also have to be aware that even if it looks like you have more room, you probably want to you want to realize that the thing is going to try to rise out of the pan while it's cooking or whatever. It's going to try to rise, so you don't want to get too overzealous with how much you fill the cooking container, because if you don't give enough room, just like with muffins, then it's going to start probably spilling out eventually. Or, yeah, so you probably only want to fill it up at most like 2/3 of the way or something. Maybe at most 3/4, but probably 2/3 is probably the best bet, I would say. If you're going to add more like add-ins and shit than the recipe might normally say or whatever, just be aware of that. those are all mixed up pretty well, I'd say. I don't really need the scale anymore, pretty much. I don't believe so, at least. So what do I need next? I'm pretty sure next is cheese. So I got 8 eggs, 1 cup milk, cheese, and then the ham, and then the spices. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I'm just gonna be shredding some cheese now right into the bowls. In my case, 1 8-ounce block. Or yeah, 1 8-ounce block each. I'm pretty sure that's more than what the recipe calls for, but you know, I'm not gonna fucking get exact. There's no point. There's no point to get that exact with this shit. As long as it doesn't spill out of the fucking container, that's all that matters, really. Yeah, so let's do this. Bring this over. So, if you're somebody that shreds cheese a lot, especially like harder cheeses and even some semi-soft cheeses like mozzarella, I personally would really recommend one of these, either a electrical one or these mechanical, like, I don't know what you call this, like manual turnstile shredders. And it comes with a bunch of different attachments. In my case, I'm using a coarse grate fineness, or whatever you want to say, coarse fineness on the grate, instead of fine. Even though I think both work, it's just, I think coarse is just, it works easier. But yeah, I really like this thing. Now I will say, for anything other than cheese, it doesn't work that well. Like, it works well for, say, butter that's straight from the fridge, which is really useful to shred up butter if you're going to make scones, because scones, you want to have butter that is frozen, but trying to grate frozen butter fucking sucks. So instead, I think it's a lot easier to grate up fridge cold butter with one of these things into like a sheet of aluminum foil, and then when it's all grated up, you take that aluminum foil, crumple it up, and put it in the freezer, and then when it's in the, let it freeze for probably, you know, like 2 hours, two to as many hours as you want, whenever you want to make the scones, and then you have already shredded up frozen butter. This thing works great for that. It works great, as I said, for hard cheese and semi-hard cheese. That would, you know, I mean, if you cut it down and stuff. These 8-ounce ones are perfect because it fits like right in it perfectly. That's one of the reasons I like these ones. It's not that hard to clean. I generally just put it through the dishwasher, not the entire thing. You take it apart. It's not very hard to take apart and put together and all that. Though for anything else, like, it's not gonna work for fucking like carrots, at least baby carrots or something like that's harder. Nuts or anything, like, it's not gonna fucking work well for that shit. At least not this manual, like, fairly cheap plastic kind of one. But it works great for this shit. Because grating cheese by hand, I found, fucking blows ass. And basically grating almost anything by hand blows ass, I found. Yeah, so this thing is really nice for this applications with cheeses and stuff. Definitely worth like the whatever, like $20 it was. Say if you make mac and cheese a lot, it's fucking amazing. In this case, I'm using Swiss. Now, in the Discord group, I was talking about how I was surprised how much I liked Swiss, the flavor of it and stuff, and I still think that is definitely the case. I definitely like Swiss, and I also like how it shreds. It's very like really not like greasy, and it shreds nicely and everything like that. But after testing a few times, making the same recipe with both cheese, or both Swiss and cheddar, I did find, probably not that surprisingly, that Swiss is not great in terms of how it like melts. Like, it doesn't melt bad, but it doesn't become very gooey like cheddar does. It's more like firm. It's more firm in its overall texture when it's heated and stuff, so it doesn't like melt probably as you'd probably want something like this, though it still comes out fine. It's just the texture is a lot more firm than like gooey and everything. I still think the taste is pretty good, and cheddar tastes good too. It's just not as distinct as Swiss, I guess, but probably a a half and half mixture would work fairly well. It would have, sort of both the added flavor of Swiss and the better melted texture of cheddar, I would imagine. But in this case, I have Swiss, so I'm just using Swiss. Even though I would probably recommend for this recipe using a very sharp, the sharpest cheddar you can find, because I think the texture comes out a lot better, a lot more like a quiche, a lot more gooey and melty and stuff like that. They're both, like I said, they're both very good. It's just I think cheddar does work better for this particular recipe, or for like, I guess, quiche kind of things in general. Sometimes shit gets kind of sheet like that gets trapped, but it's not a big deal. All right, so that's one. Yeah, I don't know, man. With this thing, you just blow through the shredding of the cheese. Like, when you do this shit by hand, it's a fucking arduous fucking task. That's like the best way to put it, is it's a fucking arduous task. Saw a little bit of light flickering. Makes me wonder if these silly little dome lights are starting to go bad. Probably. I don't have no clue how to change them, so that'll be fun to figure out when that happens. Couldn't just put in some normal light bulbs. Nope. Gotta put in these silly dome lights or whatever. Or, I don't know what you call them, like, not indented, but they got, I forget what the word is, where they have, like, they go inside the ceiling slightly or whatever. It's a little strange. It's funny, I used to not really like Swiss, but then when I started trying it in a few things that I've cooked, I'm like, well, I like it. I like it. And you also don't want to go crazy fast with this thing, because I found, at least depending on the cheese, I guess, if it's really sensitive to heat or melting or whatever, if you like try and go too fast turning it, like, it'll actually like heat up the thing that it's rolling on, and it'll start like fucking gumming up the shit, because the the graters, because it's fucking melting while you're turning it. That only happened like once, but yeah, it was kind of a disaster to salvage that after the fact. Don't want your stuff to start melting while you're grating it. Friction, melting from friction. But it also helps to have your cheese at a cooler, like fridge temperature before you start trying to shred it, because yeah, when it's warmer, that's obviously when it's going to be more likely to want to melt while you're actually shredding it and stuff, which that is not conducive to most people's desires, I would imagine, for a shredded consistency. Only thing that could be a little bit annoying is after you're done shredding is trying to get the excess that is still in there out. It's not that hard, but it can be difficult sometimes. But I suppose even with a normal hand grater, it's the same shit. You're gonna have a lot of stuff that just gets stuck in little crevices that it's hard to reach. So at least if you're somebody like me who doesn't like to waste stuff. Don't like to waste it, and this also is stuff that you're just going to be cleaning up anyway if you don't get it out. Cleaning up while it's in the sink or whatever. Alright. I think that's reasonable enough. Ooh, maybe a bit more. Yeah. I think that's reasonable enough. Call it there. That's the cheese done. I will clean that later. Just running that under some pretty hot water, and it usually cleans it pretty well. Does most of the work. Alright. Now for the just slightly more annoying part, which is dicing up the ham. At least in my case, the pre-cooked ham steak things. Hatfield 8-ounce pre-cooked ham steak. Basically is perfect size for this this kind of recipe. I like these a lot, even though I'm sure they're processed as fuck or whatever, but what isn't basically. Alright, this, and then you try to get a fairly long and sharp knife, and then you just cut it as finely as you can manage. Might try a different strategy that I have before and cut it in half first and then do the dicing, but I'll see, I guess. Now this knife is honestly not, it's probably the sharpest knife that we have, kitchen knife in the house, and I bought this not that long ago, but it's a pretty cheap knife. It was only like $14-15. It's like a 10-inch. Was it 10-inch or is it 8-inch? I forget. It's like something like it's like a 10 or some shit inch. Maybe even it's 12-inch. I don't know. But it's a pretty large kitchen knife. And yeah, it's pretty cheap, so it wasn't like super sharp. It's probably already, and I can feel some burrs on it already. Haven't tried to sharpen it or anything like that because I don't really have any proper sharpening equipment at the moment. But yeah, I mean you could do it with any fucking knife, I guess. But if you want to make it a bit easier on yourself, you want to have something fairly sharp. Now, what I would normally do is basically like cut it this way into sections, and then change it like this, and then cut it into smaller sections from that, and that usually works pretty well. But the hardest part is kind of, so what I'm gonna try to do at least once and see how it goes is I'm gonna cut it in half first. Cut it in half first, and then in this half section I'll do basically the same thing that I normally do, but being in half like this should in theory make it just easier to cut overall, but cut through each time, so but we'll see, I guess. I mean, it definitely is easier because I don't have to use the entire force of the entire length and force of the knife for a big section. Instead, I'm just doing it in smaller sections like this. I think this is easier, honestly. At least it's easier. It's fatiguing my hand less. Even though this will probably take us just a slight bit more time to do. And yeah, these aren't very super fine dices, obviously. It's like, but it's fine enough for this purpose, I think. I'm gonna try to do this, something like this. Oops. It's always those very end pieces that still have the whatever the skin on it that are the hardest parts, because they don't as easily want, or they don't as readily want to cut all the way through or whatever. And yeah, I think that's good enough for that half. Yeah, now that kind of sucks, is that now I have things kind of blocking, kind of getting in the way. Because I'm going to do one of these per mixture. And yeah, using a plastic cutting board, even though we probably shouldn't be doing that, because, you know, all those microplastics and all that bullshit, but hey, fuck it, man. There's no way to avoid the microplastics entirely, so fuck it. this like that. I think doing it the other way is probably faster. That being the entire thing at once sort of thing, but it is definitely less fatiguing on my hand. This way, so I think I kind of prefer that generally. Those are sort of big chunks, but whatever. It's okay. All right, so that's one. Yes, I know the proper technique to scrape with your knife. Use the back. Do not use the blade. That just unnecessarily dulls the blade. Alright, that's one. For the other. And yeah, I'm trying to avoid touching much with my left hand. It's got all the ham grease and juice, whatever, on it. So I'd like to avoid getting everything greasy and shit, if possible. Cut it in half. Yep, that works. Right there. And do the same. And yeah, I know when you see people doing cutting stuff on YouTube or whatever, usually you'll see them feeding the thing that they're cutting that way and not moving the knife. Well, in my case, I usually move the knife, which, I don't know, it's probably not as good, but I haven't really practiced the other way much. I just found it works for most applications that I have. I'll practice it eventually, but I just don't need to that often enough to like be concerned about it, I guess. It's like, fuck it. It's currently raining out quite a bit, which it hasn't rained in a while. It snowed a lot, obviously, the past few weeks, but first time it's just straight up raining, which is interesting. It's still pretty cold out, but it's not like nearly as cold as it was. Yeah, I like the this method of cutting them in half first and then doing it that way. It's what happened here? I didn't get cut that well. Yeah, it just feels easier on the hand overall. Even though you're doing more motions in total, they just are a lot less fatiguing or taxing overall. Yeah, that works. Not bad. Not bad at all. Wash that knife off a bit. Get some of that grease off. But yeah, that was the quote-unquote difficult parts, if you could really even call it difficult. And now we just add some spices. Mix it all up, pour them into the pie tins, and cook them. Cook them for like an hour, and we're good. We're good to go. Cook them and then cool them. And yeah, one might say, why don't you use soap? And you're right, but in most cases, I feel like you can get the oily shit off well enough with the greasy shit off well enough with just some warm or hot water, a fair amount of it. And one might say that, wow, you use quite a lot of water. Well, water is, it's a lie that water is a limited resource. It's like oil and everything else, so I don't really give a fuck, even though, yes, you're paying for it, but even though you're paying for the water, for how much you actually use and how much you're paying for that use is far less than the bullshit, what would you call it, the static price, or the yeah, I guess that'd be kind of word, the price that you're paying either way. Just for the distribution fees, I believe they call them. So even if you use 0 gallons of water, if you have your water on, you're still probably paying, like, who knows, $65 every quarter for your water. Even if you didn't fucking use any of it. Whereas if you actually used it, you might only have $70, but 65 of those 70 is just the distribution fee. So yeah, fucking, it ain't something I really give a fuck about using. I think I'd rather use more than less. In almost every case, so fuck it. I'll quote unquote waste as much goddamn water as I think is necessary. Okay, so, yep, now it's just spices. So what I need is a tablespoon not a tablespoon, a teaspoon. Is it a tablespoon? No, it's no. It's this is quite a big difference. Teaspoon. And I'm not going by whatever the recipe says necessarily. I'm just kind of going by what I like, what I've seen, and what I've seen seems to work. Pepper, and I will use a bit of salt. Not that much because I'm using a alternate to salt in this case, but I'll use it a little bit mixed in there. I'll just mix this up right now a little bit. While I'm doing this, I'll put the oven to preheat 350. What was it? Basil? You don't really have to use basil. It just kind of gives it a little bit more visual appeal, I'd say, and probably like a little bit, adds a little bit of flavor. You don't want to use too much though. I thought it makes it quite the mess looking thing if you had too much basil. Just a little bit will do. Like I said, the one time I think I used too much pepper. So I'm not going to go too crazy with that. But for this stuff, this is the quote-unquote salt substitute. This is potassium chloride instead of sodium chloride. And the reason I'm using this is because in my current diet, I have salt. I get my salt through tea in the morning and the evening, which I put salt in, salted tea or whatever. So that's how I get my sodium chloride on this current diet or whatever. The needs of that, the hydration needs or whatever. I probably don't really need it that much now, but it does seem to make me feel like better, like less like fatigued or like any like headaches or anything like that. I seem to it does seem to make me feel kind of better sometimes. So I'm like, yeah, right now I'm still doing that. So even though I'm not on the keto thing fully or whatever right now. But yeah, so I like to use in the cooking recipes themselves for the bulk of it, instead of salt, I use potassium chloride because the potassium chloride is the one that's probably the less easy to find stuff that has it, I guess. So yeah, so I'm just using it. It tastes basically the exact same as salt. It's just potassium instead of sodium. So that's why I'm gonna use a heaping teaspoon and mix it in there. And I think just a tiny bit more. Probably quite a bit to some people. You know what? I'll do both at the same time, so I don't have to think about it. And yes, I'm somebody who likes my salt. So I'm not shy of adding quite a bit. And you know what? While I'm at it, I will put just a little bit of regular, so just a little bit in there, just for the hell of it. Why not? I'll do like 3/4 or something of a teaspoon black pepper. Don't go too crazy with that. I should have done that first, doesn't really matter. And some magical MSG. I will use 1 teaspoon each. I think that is sufficient. Wonderful, but for no good reason, reputationally tarnished MSG monosodium glutamate. It is supposedly made out of, what is it? Oh yeah, cayenne pepper. I'm just gonna do whatever there. What's it made out of again? Seaweed? Something like that. It's some kind of seaweed extract, basically, or something like that. The umami flavor sensation, and just a touch of the basil. All right, let's wash this, rinse this off. Let that dry on top of the stove. Yep, put everything I wanted in there. But yeah, MSG is great. Okay, it's great depending on the dish. I think it's great with eggs. I think it's very good with eggs. I think it's good with. You probably don't need it with stuff like beef. But I think it's still good with that. I think it's good with basically any meat that you want that kind of like savory umami flavor or whatever. But yeah, it goes really good with eggs, I've found. And it goes good with quite a lot of things that you want that savory flavor in. So yeah, fuck what the hype says, fuck what the normies say. The MSG is great. And mix this all together as well as I can. Inevitably, the solids in here are going to like usually sink more to the bottom. And the cheese is usually going to stay, at least for the Swiss, it's usually going to stay like around the top, sort of. So it's just kind of going to be like that no matter how much you mix it or whatever. As well as how it pours in when you actually put it in the container you're cooking it in. Just kind of the physics of it or whatever. Man, that oven preheated fucking pretty quick. Just good. It's always funny. They're like, these stupid recipes. They always say, like, one of the first things, preheat the oven to a certain temperature. And I'm like, why? I mean, like, they say that fucking, you're not going to prepare the fucking ingredients in whatever stupid time that they say it's going to take. Like, it's going to take fucking way longer every time. So, like, what's the point of preheating the oven? Unless you're doing it to like 400 degrees Fahrenheit or something, where it'll take fucking longer. Like 350, it'll take like a fucking few minutes. So what's the point of preheating it right away? It's stupid, if you ask me. But then again, as I've said, and as you've probably seen, I'm very slow at preparing anything or whatever. Slow and methodical, so yeah. In my opinion, it is silly to preheat so early for no reason. Just, okay, now I want a silicone spatula to be able to scrape anything that remains on the bowl. I think somebody had a piece of that. Probably. I guess I'll do this one first, doesn't really matter. Now pour this gently so it doesn't splatter everywhere, or try to at least. the inside of the bowl as best as it can. Get whatever remains. Which in this case is not too much. Alright. Here for now. And then you try to just mix around the solids a bit. Like in this case, it's just probably like barely not overfilled the depth of the pan or whatever. So yeah, if you put in extra add-ins or whatever, you're probably going to want to be careful with that, because you don't want to have your shit spilling over out of the oven or whatever. Yeah, just, try to spread it around and submerge the solids inside the egg mixture as best you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. It looks pretty good to me. Now for the second one. Hey. There we go. And once again, this over here, which I'll clean in a few minutes. I put these in the oven, mix this around a little bit. Now I forget how long I put these in last time, and I think they came out pretty well, but yeah, I forget. I think it was just a slight bit longer than the recipe calls for, which it says approximately 45 minutes. I think I'll just do 50. And then what the fuck did this idiot do? Oh, man. Stupid motherfucker, man. Do that, whatever. At least fit? Yeah. Yeah. Oven light. Put this over here. Yeah, I'm just gonna put these in for I think 50 minutes, and that should be good. Obviously just check them beforehand, but I think they should be fine. All right, I'll put them both on the top rack or whatever. This upmost rack. Get them nice and snug in there. Yeah, that looks fine to me. Now 52. I think that'll be fine. Keep these out. This. All right. Now, just need to wait for these to cook. I don't know if you can see them, but wait for those to cook. And while I'm waiting for those to cook, I will clean up this not very big mess that I've made. And after they're done cooking, I will show you the end result. Probably right after they cook, where they are like expanded quite a bit, and then a few minutes after they cool, which they shrink down a lot more. They collapse back down, which is like the real end result. I'll show that, but yeah, for now I will cut this off, and I'll see you in about an hour. Okay, so these are definitely done cooking. There's about 2 minutes on the timer left, but yeah, they're definitely done here. So let's take them out. And they look pretty good. As you can see, they've ballooned up quite a bit. But as I said, they will, whatever you want to call it, shrink, collapse back down within a few minutes of being taken out. Oven light off. But yeah, they look pretty good. Alright, so it's been a few minutes, and yeah, this is about probably the amount that they will shrink to, or whatever, yeah, will collapse to. They'll get a little bit, probably a little bit lower, but it doesn't really matter. As you can see, they expand quite a bit, but it's not too terrible. But you know, you don't want to have your container that you're cooking them in to be, you know, significantly overfilled or near overfilled or whatever. Definitely don't want that. But pretty much just right for this size pan or whatever. Pie dish or whatever. But yeah, I think they came out pretty good. Some would possibly say even a little bit overcooked because of the edges, but I don't know, I kind of like the edges like that somewhat. They could probably like do 5 less minutes or something, but I think it's fine. But yeah, that is 2 ham and Swiss or ham and cheese frittatas. Yeah, I guess that's all I really wanted to show, I guess, is just making those. And yeah, I think they're definitely worth making if you like eggs, if you like something like ham or even bacon, whatever the hell you want to make them with. I think they're pretty easy to make as long as you have the container to cook them in. I mean, you could just use one of these kind of glass or ceramic pans. You could probably use a metal pan too if you wanted to, like these ones, if you could see it. I'm sure I mean, that's what the recipe I did use. So yeah, you could use any kind of pan like that. But I like to make them in these pie dishes because I have them, and they're pretty much perfect size for the recipe for the most part. I'll probably, if I remember, I'll have a recipe linked in the video description. I mean, you could just look up, you know, yeah, I'll link, if I remember, I'll link the recipe in the video description, but that I use specifically, even though I didn't use the exact recipe and all that shit, but pretty much the same. But yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to show, and that's it, I guess. But thanks for watching. And I hope you found it interesting. Hope you enjoyed, and take care. I'll see you in the next one.